And now, on the last part of waste management, radioactive waste management, Mr. Christoph Davies from Euratom, Fission Project and Policy Officer. Sir, please,
Good.
your presentation.
Thank you. The aim of this presentation is to take you through the various stages and steps that the Juratum Program has gone through in recent years to justify its evolution and also to prepare for the future. You may wonder what this figure means. 44, it may be the age of somebody. If you're 44, you're still quite young. But 44 is the age of the Juratum Program. And once you've existed for 44 years, if you're a human being, you're close to retirement. I'm not saying that the Juratum Program will withdraw, but we need to prepare for the future. This is the spirit of this presentation. Anyway, the basis for the intervention on research and training is the treaty, which says that we need to help member states find solutions. And then also, we also can stimulate joint funding from member states, people, and enterprises. This is the basis for intense and integration collaboration at EU level. Now, coming to the current framework program, this is the objective, which is here to say we need to strengthen research in the nuclear field, to avoid duplication, retain critical mass, and ensure that public funding is used in an efficient way. So this is the overall objective and rationale. Then when you look at the domains that the member states have agreed that the Euratom should cover for this current framework program, is continue to do research on deep disposal. But when you look at it, it says remaining key aspects, which could lead to the questions is when you've achieved this, is there a role for Euratom? And then the second topic is to address all the other waste streams for which there is no industrially mature process. And thus, this is an opening for Commission to prepare for future activities. Of course, this is standard. In the program, we've been covering all the types of waste, from low-level, intermediate, and high-level waste. I have separated the low-level and high-level waste because we have supported these different categories of waste in a different way over the framework programs. And then you see in the boxes all the activities that are allowed for such activity. I mentioned also decommissioning, which we used to support a lot. I'll come back to this also. On this slide, you have an overall picture of the evolution of the different budgets. So we started in 1975, and then we gradually increased the funding up to the mid of the 90s, where this budget was split between low-level and intermediate-level waste and high-level waste. You can see also that we had a significant budget on decommissioning. The orange histograms And this was gradually diminished and stopped for at least 2 or 3 framework programs. And the rationale for this is that it was considered in the early 2000s that this domain was already an industrial process, and then the need for direct research was not supported by the member states because this was an agreement of the framework program. But you can see that gradually we've picked up the budget. Okay. Basically, we were also very low on support to high-level waste because there was quite some activities and then it was considered that the science gradually was starting to be mature. I think it's been mentioned by Mr. Abadi also, 40 years of science. But then we start to increase again the budget, and this figure for the current framework program includes the budget for the next work program or the ongoing work program 2019 and 20. And you can see here that we have reopened gradually activities on the decommissioning, in particular the characterization of waste and innovative concepts that is quite competitive. Now, on this slide, it summarizes all the domains of activities that Euratom has supported. You have basically a schematic of an underground laboratory, and then you consider various fields of activities that we have supported, the far field, the near field processes, the technologies. Performance and safety assessment was central in the 90s, and then public involvement, governance has been supported quite substantially in the FP5 and FP6 programs, also including strategy studies. But all these were based on competitive calls. So we were starting to think that the only competition between projects is maybe not the best way to support research, and then integration of the programs was starting to be advocated with these large integrated projects, which you have here in different logos. For instance, funding, we have here the previous coordinator, Gunnar Bucco, and Lara Duro were doing this. So, I mean, this has been the major achievements of the program FP6. This scheme shows the gradual integration at EU level. The funding, the number of projects which were initially large, 43, and now we've gone down to 10 because we have larger projects, but the average funding per project has increased a lot. Also, the number of participants has been a bit stable, and then the average participation number of participants per project has increased. So you can look at this, it's not very clear from here. Now, the steps in integration and coordination at EC level. You can see at the bottom, it took 19 years to aggregate the different communities, the waste agencies, the TSOs, and the research organizations. We had just an example of first integrating project called NetExcel in 2002 to start to have an idea of if we could develop a common research agenda already 17 years ago. But I mean, sort of the mind of the different communities is maybe sometimes slow to evolve. And then we went to the step of supporting the launch of IGDTP in 2009 with its SRA in 2011. Then the support of TSOs, which was also a recommendation of the NEA-RWMC committee. And this we have supported in 2 Sea Council projects. Now the SciTex network is launched, and the Urad science, we're going to say why it's being launched in the next slide. All this captures the main spirit for integration. So basically on the left hand side you have the 2 framework programs, FP5 and FP6, which I've shown in the schematic of an underground repository. So this is the program objective and EC policy. We were doing science and technologies, industrial implementation in FP6. Then the mandate was to do implementation-oriented R&D again in FP7. And now we are on key remaining aspects, plus the other waste stream, as I have said. Now, on this EC policy, the major change for further integration was a communication in 2011 from the Commission, which was advocated for joint programming. And in the field of radioactive waste management of the Juratum Program, we've really taken this on and to really ensure that we go through this process to make sure that we can do this. All these, the bottom, the left-hand side we've seen. In FP7 there was something that was sort of triggering stage for justifying further integration. We had a call on gas impacts on the repositories. And then we had 2 competitive large proposals from agencies and then the other side, TSOs. And then the evaluators said, well, this is not on, you need to come together and then have joint projects. So we reopened the topic and we supported first joint project. Then in FP7, because we were talking about implementation oriented, we were supporting IGDTP priorities. And civil society were included in projects, and I can see this was some kind of innovative way, because civil society or social science experts were only involved in the waste projects. So we have been somehow innovative in there. But then when you look at the evolution, the science was quite mature, and then we had GD applications in Sweden and Finland in 2011 and 12. So the Commission thought that it needs to prepare and think for the future. So at the end of this FP7, we had the EURADWASTE conference, the previous one. And there were quite a few key messages. Because the geological disposal and the time scales are very different between member states, and if the Commission wants to be of help to all member states, it needs to adapt its way of supporting, not only key remaining issues, because this is not a priority for the lesson management programs. So this means we also said that each repository was a first of the kind, And then each repository has to do its own specific R&D. Because the long time scales, we need to reopen the basic science to update the tools, the models and codes. And then, of course, because of the long time scales, we need to manage and transfer knowledge between generations first, and also between programs. So this is seen from the Commission as a key role. Another issue, this SEC IGD2 was a project supporting the IGDTP platform. And then there was a guide issued called PLANDIS on sort of guiding a program that has not really structured research program on what they have to do at what stage during the evolution and development. And then this also PLANDIS guide plus SEC IGD2 identified that some of the smaller programs and less advanced may not necessarily have a priority today on deep disposal. So we, Commission, we need to take this message on board. This is why we started to reopen the pre-disposal activities. Now, we are EURADWASTE 19. I hope that out of the different sessions and the panel discussion, we're going to draw key messages that would support the strategy and orient the strategy of the Commission. Now, strategy and questions at EU level. These are open questions that we are asking ourselves. Is it necessary and how to integrate waste producers with the juridical disposal community? We have managed to integrate the 3 disposal communities, but they work mainly on open science. Whereas when you talk about waste producers, there was an example of this year call, where we had a proposal where 3/4 of the deliverables were confidential. So is this the spirit of the European Union to support research which is confidential? We need to take this into account, whether we accept this then, and is it feasible within a European Joint Program with the other communities which have open science deliverables. So, then the question is how to ensure long-term knowledge management plan. Of course, as mentioned, Juratum is an old program. We need to think for the far future and also to be of support to small programs, support the transfer to new generations, and so on. So this has been mentioned as a priority when asking for this European Joint Program. Now we need to, for this, to make sure that it delivers. And then because we have close contacts with IEA on all these domains, how to organize effective synergy and almost co-creation with IEA. This would be an achievement if we can make a step forward in this domain. Now, another key question is which tasks for non-technical stakeholders? I said that we have been somehow innovative in including social science into the projects, and it has had benefits. But now we see that very often social scientists want to be in all projects. And then we are questioning this demand because usually the civil society want to be in the project to review the work of the others. And this is questionable because if it is a matter of reviewing the project, then they should be part, as we say, in the external advisory group, which is the body which reviews the work. Civil society can be involved in defining what they think should be addressed or what research should be done. But to review the work of others is, to us, questionable. Anyway, we need to look at this to make sure that whenever civil society is involved, we have clear tasks and deliverables associated to it. So, in conclusion, the raison d'être of Euratom, of course, is to help develop, member states develop solutions, because they have, each of them, responsibility to do this. Possibly jointly, when there is a possibility to develop a treatment process or facility, why not? But we have not done it yet, and this could be a domain. So I think that we can ensure together synergies and effectiveness between all actors. The coordinated, which we call non-competitive R&D on open science in the European Juratum Program is considered from the European Commission the most effective way. We need to ensure the management of knowledge, do also cutting-edge science and knowledge transfer between member states, provision of a next generation of scientists. We need to also think of how to involve academics, because in this scheme of the European Juratum Program, the beneficiaries are those who are mandated by their national program, their governments usually, or ministries, but not all the academics are involved. And we need to think whether we can find solutions to involve them, especially on long-term knowledge, science, and then education training. So, and then the final question or conclusion is contribution of non-technical stakeholders in our R&D and the European Juratum Program need to be defined. Now, this is somehow concluding. Juratum Program is 44 years old. In next 44 years, we will be in 2063. Shall we still be there? We will see this. Because when you look at the time scales for implementation, you have, as it's been mentioned already, a number of countries that have this target date. So if the Commission and Euratom can help these countries to meet these targets, then it would be great. All these dates are not the exact dates of the first national report. Some of them have been adapted via the dates announced by IGDTP. So this is, to me, the spirit of the European Union. Together, we can reach further and farther. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Christoph, for your interest and presentation.